Today, I had the opportunity to interview Jamie Kern Lima, New York Times bestselling author of Believe It. And today she's here with me to have a chat about her new book, Worthy. We talk about the difference between self confidence and self worth. We explore the fear of failure and rejection that keep many of us stuck. And we uncover the biggest lies that lead to self doubt. You're not going to want to miss this conversation. So, Jamie, thank you so very much for being here with us today to talk about your newest book, Worthy: How to Believe You're Enough and Transform Your Life. I think,
Nicole, thank you. Thank you so much for having me. It's going to be a
of
fun time.
course, of course, I've been very much looking forward to not only the opportunity to support you in your work, but the opportunity to have a conversation. And for those within my community who aren't yet familiar with you, your incredibly inspirational and powerful journey, and now the two beautiful pieces of work you put out there in Believe It and in Worthy, I'm super excited to introduce them to all things Jamie Kern Lima. And I think a really great place for us to then jump off and get started, even when I see the topic of the book or the title, I should say worthy, right? And I think maybe people who know their background or who have listened to the intro here are aware of how much really that you've achieved and accomplished in your life. So when I hear of a book topic like worthy coming from a person like yourself, for anyone listening who maybe is instinctually thinking, well, what do you mean? Of course, a person like you feels worthy. What is it that really inspires you to tackle this topic?
I believed for most of my life, Nicole, the lie that if I achieve enough of what the world tells me will make me happy, then I'll finally feel enough. And so I spent decades of my life, kind of working so hard. And for anyone listening, with us right now who like has had a goal or something they thought, oh, when I finally get that thing, then I'll be happy, or then I'll feel enough. And for some of us, it might be, a professional goal, or for others, it might be like, oh, when I finally get in a relationship or get married or have kids or hit my fitness goals and get that six-pack abs or the dream car or the number of the bank account, whatever it is. For anyone who's ever sort of like thought, oh, once I finally get that thing, then I'm going to be made in the shade, I'm going to be happy. And then, for a lot of us, we've worked so hard. And then if, we've actually gotten one of those things and been like, I thought, we're happy for a little while, sometimes a year, sometimes a few months, sometimes a few hours. And then before we know it, it's for most of us, we're back to that spot of like, why do I feel like something's missing? Why do I feel like this isn't enough? Why do I feel like I'm not enough? And, my answer to that for a lot of years of just keep, continually feeling like I wasn't enough was, oh, I just got to achieve more. I got to try harder. I got to hustle harder. I got to go to the next level. And after doing that and finally getting a whole lot of what I thought would be enough, I realized I was still in my life feeling like it wasn't enough, like I wasn't enough. I was still sabotaging things in my life, and I was still not understanding why. And there was kind of a big moment where something happened with Oprah, of all people. And like a dream of a lifetime for me happened. And I sabotaged the entire thing. And this was at a moment where I had a lot of what the world told me should make me feel enough. And what I realized in that moment was I was really self confident. I had a lot of confidence, but I did not have self worth. And I learned that they're very different. And so I became about 3 years ago obsessed with studying self worth, with understanding how it's so different from self confidence and from all the things that, so many of us, all the messages so many of us hear from the world will tell us once we finally get them, then, we'll be happy and fulfilled and feel enough. And I realized that I had worked really, really, really hard for a lot of years, um, you know, uh, trying to believe I belong in my family, in my own skin, in the boardroom, in a CEO role, in, all the things. And I had built a whole lot of self confidence, but underneath it all, had not built self worth. And so, when you Google my story, you always see like Denny's waitress builds $1 billion company, which is true. But my real story is a girl who spent most of my entire life not believing in myself. And it's really been a recent, now multi-year journey of learning how and learning to believe I'm enough. And so I really wrote Worthy for anyone else, like for anyone out there who just feels like who they are isn't enough, uh, and they don't know why, and they don't want to feel that way. And it's really a book about, there's 20 tools in it about how to sort of unlearn the lies that lead to self-doubt, and sort of ignite those truths that wake up worthiness. And I think and I've talked about this a little bit before offline, etc. But one of the things I've shared that I'm really excited about is that while some things take a whole lot of work, or you have to learn a bunch of new things, almost like a foreign language, the beautiful thing about self-worth is that every single person, like who's listening to us, watching us right now, is fully worthy, like exactly as they are. And your past mistakes and failures and regrets and all the things that you think are wrong with you have nothing to do, like, with it. Just like all your, wins and successes and victories, all of that's all great and all out there, but it has nothing to do with the you that is you, which is fully worthy. And so building self-worth is so much of a journey about just really unlearning all the lies that lead to self-doubt, and really just waking up the beauty and the power, and then the full worthiness that is, you and each one of us. And so for me, it's been a very recent thing, really just the past couple years now, where I'm able to actually enjoy the things I'm doing, or feel fulfilled in the things I'm pursuing, because underneath it all, I'm building that knowing that, oh, I'm enough, regardless of if I fall flat on my face and fail at this thing, regardless of if someone rejects me or tells me I'm not enough, or regardless of if I crush it, hit it out of the park and win. Right. All of that is separate from this just like unshakable sense of self-worth. So I'm so excited to get Worthy out into the world. And it's really just for every person who has some self-doubt to destroy and a destiny to fulfill.
Which just, speaking from my lived experience, my now experience within my ever-growing community, there are so many, Jamie, someone's out there who this book is going to speak to. Not only in terms of so many similarities, I think that many people are going to see, as you so generously share so much of your own journey, seeing themselves in you at different stages of your own self-worth journey, and so many practical tools to begin to unlearn, as you're very wisely sharing, is the process that we need to do to unlearn. And I want to get to some of those lies in just a little bit, but I want to go back because I really relate with the aspect of your journey in terms of this endless drive to accomplish, to achieve, right? I think you even write in your book, most of my life, I believe that if I accomplish just that one thing, and I invite listeners to fill in the blanks in their own mind right now. What is that one thing that you might in this moment have the idea, belief, or even hope would give you that sense of worthiness, that give you that sense of enoughness, that give you that sense of fulfillment? And on a very similar journey of always looking for these outside external achievements that very much, I think, are celebrated. We're celebrated within my family of origin, or celebrated on a grander scale by society. And one of the reasons why I'm so grateful that you share your personal journey, because I do think those of us that have those external achievements, whether it's the letters after our name, or the life and the business, or the thing that we've created that we're getting praise or validation from, other people around. I think the reality for a lot of us, at least was the case in my own journey, is we don't have that level of fulfillment. We don't feel, I came into my 30s after checking so many boxes of things that I desperately wanted to achieve, that I too thought would lead me to feeling happy, to feeling fulfilled, to even feeling connected to those achievements. And when I was left feeling really empty, not only did I feel, shameful and unfulfilled myself, there was a part of me that was even judging myself kind of from the outside. Well, why, Nicole, do you have the right to feel as you do when you've done so much? And so again, I really want to kind of speak to both sides of this, those that are listening that don't yet feel worthy at all, and maybe don't have externally those accomplishments they're looking for. And also those that have and are maybe on that trajectory that you and I have been on of trying to just grasp for this feeling that really comes from within. And I think as we're talking about building this foundation, you've already spoke a bit about kind of the difference between self-worth, because I think these are concepts that many of us have heard of or maybe, want to cultivate in our own life. But it's the difference between, or similarities and differences between self-worth and self-confidence, because I think those are an area where we might not know exactly what we're talking about, or we might not
Yeah.
understand that those can and are sometimes distinctly different concepts in and of themselves.
And I have learned, I did not know the difference between the two. I thought, oh, self worth, self confidence, same thing. Let me just build it.
Mhm.
And I think most people for sure confuse the two. And why it's so important, like life changing important to distinguish the two, is because when we're only doing things our whole life that build self confidence, while that is important, we will never feel enough as who we are if we don't also build self-worth. And so, kind of the way I describe them, the differences between the two in the book, is, for self-confidence, while it's an internal trait, is based so much on how we assess our own skills and abilities, our willingness to try and go for it. It's largely based on external things that fluctuate, like if we're winning or losing at the moment, right? Like the studies show the boxer who wins the fight, she is 30% more confident when she wins, she or he. And if they're losing, same thing. It fluctuates, right? And how we feel, we stack up and compare ourselves to others. Our confidence is very volatile, and it's fragile, and it's up and it's down all the time. And when we see so many of the ads, growing up, commercials on television, ads out there, so many of them feed on things that boost our confidence. Like they tell us, oh, when you finally get this dream car, then you'll be happy. Then, all the things. We have well-intended, if we're blessed, well-intended friends and family that will say, they ask us things like, oh, how's your job? How is your relationship? These kind of things. And for decades, we hear those questions. They're kind of really, for most of us, the only questions people ask is about your job or about
Mhm.
your relationship or kids, right? Kind of thing. And we sort of learn that, oh, once I have really great answers to those questions, then I should feel enough. And all of these things are important, pursuing our goals, our dreams, all that's so important to build self confidence. But none of those things, whether it's the dream car or the six pack abs or, the relationship status or anything else, none of them build self worth. They all build self-confidence, which is fragile and fluctuate, but none of them build self-worth. Self-worth is the deep internal knowing that we are innately worthy of love and belonging exactly as we are, not as our relationship status, not as our job title, not as our past or failures or successes, none of that, but exactly as we are. And the way I kind of like to think about it is like our self-confidence is the big house that we're building with all of the rooms that we're adding and the windows. And it's a fun journey of growth, which is important. But that the self-confidence of that house is sitting on top of the foundation, which is your self-worth. And the house will only ever be as secure as the foundation is. And when we have cracks in our self-worth, when our self-worth is shaky, when it's not existent, that's when it feels like everything kind of comes crashing down. And, our self-worth also in so many areas is our ceiling. It's really our ceiling. And so, there are so many things that maybe a lot of people listening can relate to this, or maybe it's an epiphany in some ways for some people, like it was for me just a couple years ago in a big way, that we can be really confident in our skill set. We can do personal development work and overcome limiting beliefs around, I'm too young or too old, I'll never make $1,000,000, like I'm not smart enough, I don't have the right skill set. We can do all the work on building our skill set, overcoming limiting beliefs around things we think hold us back, etc. But if underneath it all, we do not believe we're worthy of the thing, like that becomes our ceiling, right? So we can know how to do all the things, but if, and the three ways, just to share quickly, the three ways really that self-worth, because if someone's listening going, well, I think I'm confident, do I have a self-worth issue, or do I have both challenges? The way that are very common for self-worth or lack of self-worth to show up in our lives is when we have low self-worth, it often looks like we're stuck. Like we're stuck, right? Like we have an idea to write the book, but we don't. Or we, really want to have a relationship in our lives, but we're not getting on the dating app. We're not leaving the house, like different things like that, right? Or, we have this great idea for a business and we want to register the domain name, but we don't, and we don't know why. We hate our jobs and want to leave so badly, but we feel stuck and we don't know why. And we tell ourselves stories often like, oh, I've just got to, get more experience, or I got to get more skill sets. I've got to put more reps in, then I'll be ready. And often the underlying reason is we don't believe we're worthy of the thing. So deep down inside, so we sabotage it to stay stuck, because in our relationships, in our goals and dreams, in our career ambitions, like our self-worth is our ceiling. And so when we have low self-worth, it often looks like we're stuck. When we have like low to medium self-worth, that sometimes looks like you'll go for the thing, you'll go for it, and then you'll hit a ceiling. And you don't know why, or you'll sabotage it along the way. So there are things I have done, right? I have actually, and maybe people listening can relate to this. I have dated someone and I've been like, wow, they're finally like a great human being, right? Versus like a bad boy who's going to crush my heart or whatever. And what do? We put them in the friend zone. We're like, oh, I don't know why, I'm just not attracted to them. And I learned the hard way. It's because underneath it all, I didn't believe I was worthy of a healthy, loving relationship. So I found myself attracted to what was most comfortable and most familiar, which in my case was people that didn't treat me as if I was worthy. And so when we have low to medium self-worth, it looks like that. It looks like we will sabotage opportunities. We'll get something we've always hoped for, and then somehow sabotage it. We'll be making all this momentum in our business or our dreams, and then find ourselves scrolling Instagram for 8 hours a day. Like we will hit a ceiling and not know why, because our self-worth is our ceiling. And then if you have, medium to high self-worth, what that can look like is you go for the things, you attract a beautiful relationship in your life, and you accomplish this goal or that goal, or all the things that you're going after in your life. But then when you finally arrive at those things, you still feel like it's not enough. You still feel like something's missing, like you're not enough, and perpetually unfulfilled. And so self-worth really is one thing that is just so powerful and affects every area of our life. And what I realized, and maybe a lot of people listening can relate to this, is because when I realized this in my life, Nicole, I had like, that emoji with the head exploding, yes. Where you're just like, oh my gosh, this is why I've been doing what I've been doing. I realized that most of my entire life, I was trying to subsidize all of my feelings of not enoughness through things that only build self-confidence, but don't build self-worth, which was achievement, external recognition, all the things that the world celebrates, trying to check all the boxes that I have learned or been taught, are what you do when you've made it, or you're enough, or you're, accepted, or you're validated. And again, those things are all great. Self-confidence, building self-confidence is very, very, very important. But you also have to build self-worth. And knowing the two are different is huge, because I think a lot of people, even the people in the category you described, where you've really gone after your goals and dreams, a lot of people do that their entire lives and still arrive at the very end of their life unfulfilled and feeling like it's not enough and feeling like they're not enough. And so there's something so beautiful and powerful about unlearning all those lies, embracing the truth that we truly are fully enough as we are, that no external things define that. and having that sort of rock solid certainty. And I think sometimes for really ambitious people, they get afraid that, well, if I think I'm enough as I am I going to lose my ambition? And it's like, no, actually, you get more ambitious, because when you believe you are enough as you are, what's so cool about that is that you're not afraid to, you become, for me, I've become even more ambitious. Like you become unafraid of going after the things, because even if you fail miserably, even if you fall flat on your face, it might shake your confidence, but it cannot touch your worth. And that is a place of power, and also a place of peace, and also a place of freedom. So self-worth is such a thing. And I know you talk a lot about it. By the way, I just have to say, for anyone watching on YouTube, I loved how good worthy looks next to how to be the love you seek. Because when you you see, like literally it starts to turn purple,
Oh,
like a little
look,
bit
it
next
is
to it.
beautiful. I love it. I love it. I
It
love how
starts to turn
shiny.
purple. Mm-hmm.
I want to thank you as always, Jamie. I think that even these examples you're giving can be so shame relieving for many listeners out there. Cause I know so many people who found themselves stuck in these cycles of self-sabotage, or all of the byproducts of that deep rooted feeling of unworthiness or not enoughness, and can't seem to kind of click out of, even like you were sharing earlier, having very well-meaning, supporting loved ones in our corner, in our circle, as you described, not having that from within. And earlier, when you were sharing a bit about being asked the question, I had a big smile on my face when you brought up the very common question of how's work? Because what came to mind so immediately for me, when my mom was alive, she's now been dead for a little over 2 years, but every phone call, every visit home, the second hey mom, it's me, it's Nicole, within seconds out of her mouth was, hi Nicole, how you doing? How's work? Almost
Mm-hmm.
immediately in the same sentence, not even a pause. How are you doing? Comma, how are you doing? How's work? As if those two were one and the same. And for me, that was so reflective of learning my childhood conditioning, where there was a sense of fusion between how I performed or what I did and my inherent sense of worth. So much so that, bringing now back in this concept of self-confidence, I found a pattern in my life, very begrudgingly so, and I was joking with you a little bit. It's funny that this came up behind the scenes before we hit record. Things that I was immediately good at. And in childhood, that began with academics, athletics, certain sports I excelled at. I loved it. I got praise from my mom. My mom very much wanted me to be successful in life. So, of course, prioritizing academics and athletics, even being as an avenue to getting into the college, to having the job, to pursuing the degree that then I wanted to pursue, right? All of those are good things, right? Many parents do want that of their children. Though I had learned, right, very quickly how to intuitively know what I was good at. So much so that if I tried something new and I immediately didn't excel at it, almost immediately, I would determine that that's not for me. That game's not a game I like to play. That's not a sport I'm going to continue to pursue. I'm going to stop doing things that I can't be immediately confident in. And the reason why I'm sharing this, when I first started to present more publicly, speaking on a camera, right? Things that immediately came very difficult to me, were very uncomfortable, almost that pattern, right? Because I didn't have that self-confidence. I mean, that self-worth of a foundation, right? I knew what I was confident in a lot of things. I got very good at distinguishing what I could be confident at and what I couldn't be confident at. I would avoid the things that didn't immediately elicit confidence, because I hung my worth on what I did. I didn't have that foundation to feel enough being who I was. And that habitual pattern almost removed the possibility for me pursuing this more public platform that is the holistic psychologist, that eventually translated for me to have this beautiful community, this membership, and now to be 3 books into my own author journey. So very much relating to lacking that foundation. And again, just continuing to bring up a concept that I know many people in my community hear me talk about often, which is unlearning, right, our conditioning. And what that begins with for a lot of us is becoming really conscious or present to where we are now, to what habits and patterns, as you beautifully described, right, might be keeping us stuck, might be resulting in our decision not to share our idea, right? Not to talk of our dreams, not to reveal our authentic truth, or to stay stuck, like you were just describing. And you talk of fear, and specifically two fears in general. So when we can become conscious of maybe the role fear plays, and can you offer us what those two fears are? Because I think for a lot of us, that's a beautiful starting point without shaming maybe the fact that those fears are something that you're present to in your current habits. But what are those fears, and kind of what information can that give us? And then ultimately, how can we begin to embrace those fears and essentially make the choice to do it anyway?
Yes, and one thing I want to say, really quick on what you just said that makes me so excited, just for anybody listening, right? Because obviously, everyone part of your community is so connected to you, and you know how so often we can experience our own healing or our own big aha moments through seeing someone else's example. And I just want to call out one thing really quick, because I think it's just so beautiful and powerful that you just shared for everyone listening who is just so just blessed and benefited by your work and by you showing up in the world the way that you do, and by you being on, Instagram and YouTube and all your books, all the things you're doing, and to think about how it could have not happened, right? To think about what you, and I want to relate this to every single person who's with us right now, listening and watching us, like how easily, if Dr. Nicole Pera decided, oh no, I'm just going to only do the things I'm fully confident in, and never actually have enough, self-worth to believe I am enough as who I am. So I'm going to put myself out there and do things that maybe are out of my comfort zone, and then build my skill set and confidence in them, but have enough self-worth to know who I am is enough. And then to make that decision to go for it. And when I think about, like, for me and most of my life, so many of the things in my life almost didn't happen. And a lot of things didn't happen because I doubted myself out of them. And I just want to tie this into every person listening right now, because I know there are people with us right now who maybe have their own expression of their soul they have been holding back on sharing with, could be the world. It could be one person. It could just be sharing it with their own time in their life. And so often it's because we've been taught that lie that, oh, if I'm bad at it, let's keep it moving. It's not for me. I'm not, right. All those things. And yet, like, watching you, and I should say celebrating you, in how you show up and serve, and the impact that you have, and your books and your work and YouTube. And I was commenting before we started recording about how fond I am of the videos you'll do with Jenna. And I haven't seen Lolly in any. We got to start that too. But anyways, just all of the expressions of your offering out into the world, that if you still were in that place of, oh, if I'm not good at it immediately, I'm not going to do it. I just think of all of the things that wouldn't have happened. All of the people who are with you and me right now who wouldn't be impacted by your work because they wouldn't know about it. Like, just like the ripple effect, right? And then I just want to relate that to every person listening, because it's so beautiful and powerful to embrace that you are enough as you are. And it shifts how you then think of, oh yeah, I'm going to try things even if I fall flat on my face. I'm going to try things even if I feel like I don't have the skill set or the experience, or I haven't done them before, or they're new to me, and I just want to encourage everyone right now to think about the things in their life right now that maybe they're doubting themselves out of. And it could be putting your art out into the world. It could be like taking up ballroom dancing lessons again. Yeah. It could be like just looking in the mirror in your own eyes. You know what I mean? And just saying, I love you. Like, even if it's for the first time ever, or the first time in a long time, or it could be, deciding you're getting on the dating app, no matter how many misfires happen there, whatever it is. But I think about how so many of us, like doubt ourselves. And I'm speaking from experience here, like doubt ourselves out of our own destiny. And just hearing you share that about growing up and with your mom and how for so long you wouldn't do things if you weren't immediately good at them. And, when we think of this day and age we're in, for so many people right now, they maybe want to express parts of who they are, but they're not good on social media or technology. And so then they don't try, or, whatever. There's all these reasons why, especially with how rapidly the world's changing. If we're worried about not being, first of all, no one's good at anything when they first try, or very few people are. That's the first thing. And so just hearing your story, because obviously your work is incredible, but there's little things that hold us back, like, oh, I don't know if I want to share it on YouTube, I've never done that. Or, oh, I don't know if I want to do a book, I've never written one. Or I don't know if there's all of these things. And I don't know, I just want to honor and celebrate in this sort of like real life example for everyone with us, because they're impacted by you the way I am, and their lives are so much better because of you. So for them to then go, oh wow, imagine if little Dr. Nicole LePera never decided to do anything that she wasn't immediately confident in. Oh my gosh, the difference that would be in this world. And it's the same for every person listening. And so I think it just kind of speaks to the idea of just how important it is to build self-worth, because again, your confidence is going to fluctuate. The first time I ever launched a product on television, oh my gosh, I was a hot mess. Like, it was years of getting rejected in my business, told, no, you're not right for us. And I finally got one shot on live TV to sell the product. And I was shaking like a leaf. I sweat through my dress. I was a hot mess. But had I never tried, you know what I mean? Like, had I never been bad at it at first, I could have never built what became a $1 billion company, which is wild to even say. But my point is just, I don't know. I just had this feeling when you shared that just a minute ago, that like somebody needs to hear this right now today, that maybe today is the day, that they're going to make that decision to start fully embracing their own self-worth, building their own self-worth, and deciding like, oh, me not having confidence around something or being good at it instantly shouldn't be the reason I'm holding back. So, but to answer your question about fears, oh my gosh. So there's two that I think are really, really big to talk about. At our core as human beings, I think our deepest fear is that we're not enough. And if we're not enough, we won't be loved. And, right now, oh my gosh, studies show 80% of women don't believe they're enough. 75% of female executives deal with imposter syndrome. 91% of girls and women don't love their bodies. 73% of men feel inadequate. And, when I see all those things, I just think like, to use the word you and I both love, we got to unlearn some lies, because when you fundamentally believe you're not enough as who you are, it is a lie. It is a lie. And I think the time for change has come. And, and one of the big lies I think that we often will embrace that can impact our self-worth stems around two fears a lot of people have. And a lot of people have a fear of rejection or a fear of failure. And if you are going out in the world and just getting rejected and failing, that can rattle your self-confidence. But when we let it take root and start to think, oh, I have failed so many times, I am a failure, or I've been rejected, I am a reject. I am, that's when it can take root at our identity level and really, really impact our self-worth. So in Worthy, there's a whole chapter called when you change your relationship with rejection, you change your entire life. And it goes through like it's a very simple to apply to your life right now, kind of 4-part framework on how to reframe rejection and failure. And, Nicole, a lot of people, if they're aware of It Cosmetics, or maybe they've used it or they've Googled the story, it looks like a fairy tale. It looks like a Denny's waitress, which is me, which is true, started a business in her living room. And now it's just this huge, and then sold it to L'Oreal for over $1 billion. It looks like this fairy tale. And And usually, as we all know, when we see headlines or highlight reels, that's all it is. We usually do not see the story behind the story. And the real story of that journey was from the moment I had launched the business in my living room. It was over 3 years before I could pay myself even a penny, but it was also hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of rejections and no's. And so often we let someone else's doubt about us turn into doubt in our own head. Or the people that we maybe put on a pedestal and really value their opinion, they tell us they don't believe what we're doing is going to work. So after one no or five no's or five rejections or 20, we quit. We give up. We think we don't have what it takes. Our gut or our intuition or our knowing that said you should go for this must be wrong. And we literally quit. And, you know, what I have learned and what I captured in it's a funny story in Worthy. There's 20 tools on building self-worth. One of them is a chapter called When You Change Your Relationship with Your Rejection, You Change Your Life. And that was actually its own book. So I wrote an entire book about this because I'm so passionate about it. Because for everyone listening, when you learn how to completely change your relationship with rejection or failure, and you actually assign a new meaning to it, it can change everything in your life. And I had to learn to do that, not in theory, but in practice. Like learning to do that is the only way I kept going, rejection after rejection after rejection, failure after failure after failure, to eventually what now looks like on the outside world is this huge miraculous fairy tale. And on the inside, what it was some real practical tools of learning how to do this in my life. And that book called Change Your Relationship with Rejection, Change Your Life. As you know, as an author, I would have to wait another 2 years after Worthy comes out to launch that book. And I'm like, I can't wait. And so we put it in as chapter 2 in Worthy. So the whole entire framework and all of it about rejection and failure is now chapter 2 in Worthy. And this is really what it centers around. And just for everyone listening, in your life right now, right? So many of us think of failure or rejection as something that's painful or negative or hurtful. And as human beings, we will avoid pain if we can, often at all costs. And it's why, like, for me, I have all these fitness goals. And I know the positives that will come from them if I work out every day. I know, I'll feel so great. All my blood counts will be good. And then the pain of going on that treadmill or I don't want that pain. And so many of us, even though we know the reward, we will avoid pain at all costs. And it shows up in so many different areas of our life. But in particular, when we have a fear and a big pain associated with rejection, potential rejection, or potential failure, the meaning we assign to that is so painful that we will stay stuck. We won't go for the things. We won't go after the things, right? And so, or we'll experience them a few times and be like, I'm giving up on that idea. I'm giving up on dating. I'm giving up on going after the business. I must just not have what it takes. And so many of us talk ourselves out of our own truth because of how much pain we attach to fear of rejection and fear of failure. So, everything in life is the meaning we assign to it. Like everything's the meaning we assign to it. And so I go through in Worthy, I take everyone through this 4-part framework, and I'll do a mini version of it real quick with everyone, just to add as much value as we can in this episode. I know how precious everyone's time is, and so like right now, just for everyone listening to me and Nicole, when you imagine, we're going to go through the first R right now, which is reveal. So when you imagine getting rejected, could be, the job you applied for and didn't get, the person that didn't see your value, you wanted to be invited to the party and you weren't. It comes in so many forms for us every day. It could be a big rejection, something in the past, but when you imagine yourself being rejected or failing at something, right? Without even thinking about it, just think, what's the first thought that goes through your head when you get rejected or you fail at something, like the first thought that goes through your head. For me, most of my life, it's, yep, there's proof again, I'm not enough. Proof I'm not enough. What has it been for you, Nicole? Like thinking back to most of your life, if you fail at something or get rejected.
Yeah, I think it's a version of, for me, it's the fear of failure. And then I think immediately, again, in those contexts of I'm not good. Oh my God, what do they think? Right. I'm not enough for them, for this circumstance, for the thing I want to do, for the life I want to create.
Yeah. I once asked this in a small group. It was like an event. It wasn't that small actually, but it was an event. And it was actually a CEO conference. And I think this caught them by off guard when I said, like, what's the first thought you think of with rejection or failure? And a lot of people shared what you and I had just shared, a version of I'm not enough. But some people were sharing their first thought, which was, I'm a failure. I'm stupid. Why'd I even try? I'm a loser. I'm a reject. I knew I didn't have what it takes. This always happens to me. Those were some of the, and people started crying at the CEO conference. And so, what I want to share is for everyone listening and watching us right now, that very first thought you just had that popped into your head without thinking, that write it down if you can. Okay. And there might be more than one, and write them down, because those are current your current definitions of rejection or failure. That is, and for most of us, we don't even realize, right? It's just a thought that comes really fast. And for most of us, that current definition is so painful that we will not go after the thing. We will stay stuck. We'll avoid the possibility of failure or rejection at all costs, because that current definition that popped into our head is just so painful. And so for me, most of my life, it's, oh yeah, I'm not enough. And there was a moment as I was building my company, we were a couple of years in, I had gotten hundreds of rejections, and I had this dream, this vision of like, okay, all these stores are telling me that they don't like my images of inclusivity with using all types of people and identities and shapes and sizes and skin challenges the way I have skin challenges. And they're telling me no one will ever buy makeup from images like that. So I had this vision. What if I could go on QVC, and because all the stores were using images that were very photoshopped, that weren't even real, of models. And I'm like, okay, I get that that's what they believe is the only way to sell product at the time. What if I could go on QVC? You can't Photoshop live TV, at least not yet, probably pretty soon, but not yet. And I was like, I could prove the product works. And I had this vision, right? For anyone listening who's ever had this like gut feeling and you start daydreaming, you get this vision that doesn't even make sense yet, but you just have it. I was like, I have this vision. I could go on live TV because they broadcast to 100 million homes. I could remove my makeup and show my bright red rosacea and like prove this product works. I had this whole vision that I could do it. But they kept telling me no after no after no. And I'd finally gotten a phone call with their head guy, and I was so excited. And it was one of the most painful no's, because it wasn't like, no, come back later. It was like, no. And he said, he said to me, period. He says, he actually said the words, you're not the right fit for QVC or for our customers. And when someone tells you you're not the right fit, first of all, it hits in kind of a way that's, but I remember this day crying under my covers. And I remember just so many rejections. And I remember praying about this, meditating, trying to understand, why do I have this strong gut feeling and this, what feels like a knowing I'm supposed to do this, but everyone keeps telling me no. And what I have learned, by the way, side note, is that your knowing is more powerful than anyone else's no. I don't care who's telling you no today. When you get still and you feel your knowing, that is what you trust. And when you do that, it will change your whole life. It's hard to do that when we're going through it. And so that day I started Googling. I was so upset. I started Googling everybody that I admired in the business world, in who's helped move humanity forward, people that I just thought were so impactful in this world. And I Googled one after another after that. Every single one of them has had countless failures and rejections in their journey. They're just the brave ones willing to keep going anyway. And that day I wrote down in my journal, rejection and failure does not mean I'm not enough. It means I'm one of the brave ones willing to keep going. Like, I'm not going to live my life on the sidelines and regret. Like, criticizing everyone else is going for it. Like, I'm going to go for it. I'm going to like, and I decided that was my new meaning I was going to attach to rejection. Another one is rejection is God's protection, or rejection is the universe's protection, right? Depending on whatever your belief system is, you apply that. And when you write out a new definition for rejection, which is the second R, which is redefine, it's important that it has to feel true in your soul. You can't say something that just sounds good on paper or whatever. It has to feel true. And I knew in my soul that, like, oh yeah, rejection means I'm one of the brave ones willing to keep going for it. Or another definition, rejection is God's protection. There's so many really, really great definitions. And I wrote out the ones I really believe to be true. And I literally reframed. I started reframing this every time it happened. And I would go, and it helped me get back up and keep going, because I started to associate, when I believe these new definitions, I associated empowerment with getting rejected, which does not make any sense to our old belief system we're taught. But I retrained my mind to associate a new powerful meaning with rejection and failure. And so what started happening in the real story that you never read about in the press is I still kept getting rejection after rejection. But instead of being like, oh yeah, this means I'm not enough, I should give up, I should quit, I'm a failure, like, oh, this rejection's a victory. It's a reminder I'm one of the brave ones willing to keep going for it. Or, oh, this rejection's God's protection. I cannot wait to see like what better is coming down the road, and what better timing is going to happen. But I am going to trust this rejection's happening for me. And I started redefining it. And that is how I got back up every time I got knocked down. And eventually, we got one shot on QVC after years of rejections. A whole other story I can share if at any point, if you want me to. It's a whole other story about trusting your knowing over all the no's. But we eventually sold out that one airing. We then started doing live show after live show after live show, and we built the biggest beauty brand in QVC's history. And I only share that because for years they had said no, and you're not the right fit. And if I still associated so much pain with going after it again and rejection and failure, I would have never gone after it. I could have never built what became a $1 billion business. But more importantly, I could have never believed I was worthy of being in that room, of being on the set, of all of those things, of building an actual company. And I redefined the meaning of rejection and failure. The third R is revisit. This is my favorite one. So many of us are carrying meanings that are so painful assigned to past rejections or past failures. And one thing I do in my life is I will go back and revisit and ask myself, what meaning am I assigning to that rejection? And I will redefine it in my life and remind myself of that new definition until I truly believe it. It has to be one that's true. It can't just be positive thinking or BS or any of that stuff. But, I was adopted and through, the parents that raised me working all the time, I always had the story I told myself, I'm abandoned and rejected and unwanted. These were kind of these labels that I took on, and they came out in a lot of different areas in my life. And it was just a few years ago where I really did the work of like, oh, wait a minute, I was actually chosen. Like I was chosen to come into this world, and my birth mom's life would have been way easier if she did not have me. My adopted parents chose to raise me. Like God chose me to come into this world. So for me, I'm like, oh, I am not rejected and abandoned and unwanted. I can easily believe that because those labels apply to my story. If I want them to, I'm going to also redefine it in a way that helps me not let them take root in my self-worth, and also look at something I also believe is true. This can't be, again, positive thinking or lie. I know it's true. I'm chosen and I'm one of a kind and all of those things. And so, and the last small example, just for anyone listening today, and again, you can replace the word God with universe or anything that you believe, but probably my all-time favorite one that I use all the time, Nicole, because you, me, have both learned this. Everyone listening, it does not matter how successful you are in different areas of your life. It doesn't, I feel like we are all the same. We all experience versions of rejection and failure for a lot of us, myself, every day. And so, my favorite definition I apply to past ones, but also current ones, and this is maybe for anyone listening today who's had someone break their heart, pull the rug out from underneath them, not see their value. Maybe it's something like you really wanted the job and you don't know why you didn't get it. Like, I literally look at the rejections in my life and I feel them fully. I feel them, all the feelings that come with them. I allow myself to process those feelings and really be in them. And then once I'm through that, I decide the meaning I want to give to it. And that's when I use this tool. And I will most often, and I've done this with past dudes that have broken my heart with so many things, right? I really believe this. I imagine, and I do it to this day when I have a painful rejection or a friend that I don't know why they don't like me. They just don't, or whatever it is, a colleague where you're just like, why wasn't I invited? Whatever it is, the job you didn't get, whatever. I literally imagine my creator saying to me, oh, you weren't rejected. I hid your value from them because they're not assigned to your destiny. And I believe that to be true and I trust it. And it helps me, that new definition helps me not let it take root in my identity or self-worth when somebody rejects me or when I fail. I don't feel like I'm a reject or I'm a failure. I'm like, okay, God was blocking my value from them because they're not assigned to my destiny, right? For some people, it might be, oh yeah, the universe has my back. The universe is blocking my value from them because they are not assigned to my destiny, right? These are tools you apply no matter what your belief system, but they will fundamentally shift so that things don't take root in your self-worth, and so that you're like free, like these labels and these lies we put on ourselves are heavy. And for me, most of my life, it feels like trying to fly and spread my wings while carrying lead balloons. And it's like breaking free of them and assigning new empowering beliefs and definitions, even to things that are painful that happen every day, failure, rejection, etc. When they're true, when these definitions, and they can, for everyone listening and watching, you create your own and they have to feel true in your soul. Like for me, I know rejection is God's protection. I know, when someone rejects me, I have a divine trust that my value is being blocked from them because they are not assigned to my destiny. I will trust it. And doing this tastes like freedom. And you just feel light. And it's one of my favorite tools in the book. So that was a long answer, but hopefully it made sense.
I absolutely appreciate it. And what I think I specifically appreciate about a theme that's kind of woven through all of those very helpful and practical tools, Jamie, is your continued emphasis, right? That this is almost kind of a two-layered, for lack of a better word, journey, right? This is beyond, right? For many of us, when you're talking about fears and feelings and our ability to be with, right? What we're really in kind of my language talking about is kind of our body's experience of emotions, right? That being separate layer from the thoughts in our mind, because I think many of us have maybe heard of powerful affirmations to think, even just repeating, right? For sake of this conversation, I'm worthy, right? Over and over again. The many of us who have tried that probably get a bit frustrated because that isn't fully, unless we're working on that deeper level where beliefs also exist beyond just the thoughts in our mind, all of those feelings that are imprinted and stuck for many of us in our body from our past experiences, our learning, what was modeled to us and everything in between. Those affirmations, right, don't necessarily work. Because even going back to when you asked me what was the first thought, imagining a rejection or a failure, for me, it would be more so a failure because that's my more predominant fear. It wasn't a thought that I became most aware of first. For me, when asked that question and calling to mind a failure or imagining myself failing, it was a feeling. What I felt in my body was a constriction, almost like I was holding my breath, like I had knots in my stomach. Because what over time for me has gotten merged together is when I don't perform or achieve or show up right? In this display that someone wants or needs of me or thinks I'm capable of or is successful in this world. What I learned in my first earliest experience with my mom in particular, as I was describing our relationship earlier, right, was that I am not worthy, right? I had this fusion of what I did and my ability to be connected or belonged in my most important relationship. So when imagining failing or not living up to that expectation, what became prominent to me, and just even tying all these concepts together, was the fear that lives in my body, because the meaning I have habitually assigned over time was not achieving or performing results in lost love, lost connection, right? Loss of something I need. There's the fear and the constriction in my body. And then that merger of, oh, I am what I do. So really pulling apart and giving myself space to not only explore kind of what had caused and created this subconscious patterning, but then allowed me to not just affirm my way into worthiness, like I was describing earlier, actually through daily actions, creating the space in my life to show up in the embodiment of worthiness, so that over time I didn't just have to rely on the actions and the feedback that those actions would elicit. I was beginning to have that internal foundation of, okay, I might succeed in some areas. I loved how you even reframed failure to some extent when we're trying something new. The language you offer very beautifully in the book, and I now incorporate this into my own journey, is I am doing this for the first time. I am the first who, right? And I'm speaking to the many cycle breakers out there, the many of you listening who are beginning or going to now set the intention to try something new. For me, that was a incredibly powerful reframe. Instead of that expectation that I should immediately succeed, being the first to go down this new path, being the first time I'm doing something, really reminding myself that it's new. This is a first. And my worthiness, again, doesn't hinge on what the outcome of this action is. And I do want to ask you just a little bit. I know many of your chapters, you go into a whole section of the book, and I really appreciated this, where you, as you referenced earlier, you explore and unpack a whole multitude, really, an arsenal, a book, if you will, of lies that many of us, right? Because we're talking about these beliefs ingrained, not just in our mind, for many of us, ingrained in our bodies, keeping us stuck, keeping us, as you write beautifully, canceling ourselves out of even acting in a new way. So I know we don't have time to go through each and every one of them, but can you highlight some of the common lies that you have come to the awareness very much do keep many of us, and I'm sure many listeners, stuck in those old habits?
Oh my goodness. Yes. Which one do I dive into? There are some good ones in here, right? There are lies that say, if I am me, I won't be able to be loved, period. I won't find love. I need to please them in order to love me. All of these lies in the book, and I share experiences and lessons around them. Another one I think is really common that actually affects a lot of men and women is that my weight determines my worth. And I talk a lot about realizing that I was waiting on my weight to actually think I was worthy of living my best life. And the numbers are just staggering around this, around 91% of people opt out of meaningful activities and interactions with loved ones and etc. when they don't like how they look. And it's wild. I remember recently you and I were talking about in another conversation, and also Oprah. I was having conversations with Oprah, which sounds really wild to say that out loud, but I'm just going to say it because she brought this up publicly, which will be shared soon. But she was saying that even if she gained 5 pounds, she would decline a party invitation. She would miss a big event. And for me, I talk a lot in the book about this lie about waiting on your weight and it has nothing, this chapter has nothing to do with your weight, by the way. It's the idea of waiting for something to change before you're worthy of living your best life and of being who you are, of showing up. And sometimes it's our literal weight. Sometimes it's the weight of others' expectations or anything else. But what I realized, Nicole, was even though I had built, a company that, we had over and have tens of millions of customers just in the US alone. And the branded cosmetics was built so much on feeling worthy and seen and enough as you are. And even through all of that, and in my own life, I used to hide my rosacea. I have bright red rosacea on both of my cheeks. Like, it's very bumpy. And I used to always hide it because when I didn't, I would go to the grocery store and someone would be like, "Are you feeling okay?" Or, "Oh, you got a sunburn, huh?" Or like, it was such a thing. And I always used to be ashamed of it. And I literally redefined my rosacea the way we just kind of went through that exercise. And there was a moment one day in the grocery store where, and I was much younger at the time. This was over 10 years ago. And I remember seeing a woman in the produce aisle who had all of this hyperpigmentation across her face. And I had my bright red rosacea. It was a rare day I didn't have makeup on. And I remember she and I made eye contact and just like smiled. And in a moment, it was like, without saying a word, it was like, "Thank you. I see you. You are beautiful." And there was just this moment, and it helped me redefine the meaning I gave to my rosacea. I saw it as like, "Oh, this is not a flaw I should be mortified or embarrassed over." Like, this could, every time I show it, it could be inspiring and empowering, which is part of why, I see makeup the way I see fashion. You dress up some days, you dress down most days. I wear sweats most days. 99% of my life, I do not wear makeup. Some days I want to put it on, just like I want to, put on a real fun outfit or whatever. But when I launched the company, it wasn't about the product, even though I really believe in the products. It was trying to redefine this whole thing, trying to empower people to see their own beauty. And that's part of why I took my makeup off on national television, what became over 1,000 times, even though most of my life I wouldn't leave the house without makeup. And my point is, I learned how to redefine the meaning I attached to what I thought was a flaw, my skin condition called rosacea. But even through all that, and even through this journey, I still struggled with thinking I needed to be a certain weight to be worthy. And I opted out of events if I didn't fit into clothes, and all of the things, and I talk about this a little bit in the book, which I've never talked about before, but even, I would make sure the lights are dim when I'm in the bedroom with my husband, like all of these insecurities. And I didn't wear a swimsuit for like 2 decades. And it wasn't until one day when I was with my daughter who was turning 1, and we were at a hotel in this really crowded public pool, and I was going to just not swim again. And I just had this huge epiphany. You talk about your body, you're just talking about the things you feel in your body. I always feel like when we get still and stop listening to our thoughts, we can feel if something's true or not in our body. By the way, that is how I ended up a whole other story, calling Oprah after sabotaging that for 4 years, because my thoughts were telling me I wasn't enough. But in my body, I knew I'm enough. Like every person listening to us right now, right? Because our body tells us, right? It gets tense when something's a lie, and it just relaxes when something's the truth. And when we're able, and this is a big focus of the book, Worthy, when we're able to get out of our own thoughts and get into our body, get out of our thoughts and get into our knowing that knows at our core, each and every person is fully enough. It's like the very first step in building worthiness. And what I realized in that moment in that pool was like, oh my gosh, me just not swimming because I think I need to wait on my weight to be worthy of putting on a swimsuit. That is a lie. And all I'm doing, first of all, no one cares what I look like in a swimsuit. And second of all I'm doing is teaching my daughter she's unworthy of being in a swimsuit. And so, you know what I mean? And it was like, that was the day where I realized this question: what has waiting on my weight already cost me in my life? And the answer was way too much. And that was the day I decided to literally no longer wait on my weight to live my best life. And there's a whole chapter just about that lie that we need to wait on something to finally have to happen to be enough. And it is a lie that leads to nowhere. And it's kind of all hindered around that fundamental question, really even bigger than beyond that, which is, what does self-doubt already cost you? What does believing you're unworthy already cost you in your life? And earlier, you and I were talking about how when you associate pain to something, um, you know, we'll avoid it at all costs. And I have found the reverse can be true, meaning not the reverse of that, but that you can apply that to, instead of being fearful to step out and start your worthiness journey and make the phone call and get on the dating app and do all the things, instead of being fearful over that, a great way or a great boost of encouragement and a boost of to go after all of those things on your own journey of building self-worth is to use that human fear of pain in the way of flipping it and saying, well, what has self-doubt already cost me? And the pain often of everything it's cost us by doubting ourselves is going to be far greater than the pain of what might happen if we go for it and it doesn't turn out how we wanted it to. And so I go through kind of in the book how to do that as well. But for me, I mean, it's such a simple, silly example, but it's how I ended up putting on the swimsuit and jiggling my cellulite with joy and all the things, no longer waiting on my weight to feel worthy. And it's really just one of many lies, though, to to unlearn. That's really powerful, because for everyone listening to think of what has self-doubt already cost us in our relationships and our goals and dreams and our hopes, etc. For so many of us, the answer is way too much.
Right. You write a beautiful quote and you say, self-doubt and self-belief take an equal amount of energy to manifest something that hasn't happened. And so aside from the pain, the energy, the focus on whether it's, again, the self-doubt or the self-confidence or the self-belief, right? It is it is taking a toll, right? It is a very real piece of our experience. And for many of us, it does contribute so much attentional focus on doubt, so much focus on the fear, the pain, and all of that which is wrapped up in this belief of unworthiness is very objectively and logically pulling our attention and our resources away, and even outside of our awareness, contributing to what we are continuing to recreate, even if ultimately that we want to avoid it. And I just have to say, going through the many different lies, there were so many in there, Jamie, that I saw kind of reflected in bits and pieces of my own self beliefs that have been created and reinforced and validated over time. And I just want to continue to thank you for really your generosity in being so open and vulnerable. There's so much of you within these pages, many things that I learned about you for the first time, even in reading your narrative in here, that, are so close. Details are different, circumstances are different, but underlying experience, beliefs, shifts, changes, for me was just really, really supportive, in terms of, again, when we see ourselves reflected in someone else. And this is why I'm just so grateful that you so readily speak, on the more kind of the deeper aspects of our journey, because I do think that things can be projected that aren't necessarily the reality. And seeing so much of myself in you has relieved, again, that suffering that I think many of us create in our own journeys, where we secretively believe that we must be the only one struggling with this lie, struggling with this area, sabotaging in this way. And back to, I think, a beautiful concept you offered earlier, there is so much similarity in our individual human experiences, wherever you're tuning in to even listen to this talk from, than dissimilarity. So just want to continue to thank you for who you are, how you show up in this world in general. Of course, all of the beautiful work that you've now put into both of these books. I think they're going to be of such beautiful impact when the collective, as they get their hands on it. And I want to end with a really powerful quote. I love quotes. So I have many quotes actually of yours that I've taken from this now new book. But you kind of pose a question, if you will, for readers. I think it's toward the end of the book. And you say, what will you do with the power that is you?
Mm.
Bravely, boldly live the answer. So, my very long winded way of sending you the gratitude for all of the ways, Jamie, that you do bravely, boldly, publicly, inspirationally, right? Not only just live the answer of what we see and think is reflected externally, but how open you are about the whole journey that is you, an evolution that is you. It is so from not only a kind of professional, kind of us joined together in service, but from a very personal side of things, I'm just so appreciative and inspired and continue to be as I have the opportunity to walk alongside of you in this journey. So thank you for all that you are and all that you do.
Thank you. First of all of that right back to you as well. And thank you so much. I am so grateful for our friendship and also just for how you show up and serve the world. So thank you for you, the power
Absolutely.
that is you.
Absolutely. And so we'll make sure that everything of Jamie's is linked here in the description as we get ready to end. Can you tell us the best place to get our hands on your new book, Worthy, How to Believe You Are Enough and Transform Your Life, and also any other places that we can follow along with your ever inspirational journey?
Yes. So thank you so much. So you can get Worthy anywhere books are sold, independent bookstores, Target, Audible, anywhere books are sold. And then on worthybook.com, lots of free thank you gifts there. And, I'm donating 100% of the proceeds. Don't sell anything on my site, but we are just focused on being a force for good in the world. So there's lots of free thank you gifts there at worthybook.com. And I am on Instagram. You'll see me following the holistic psychologist if you're trying to find me, but on Instagram at Jamie Kern Lima. And I'm just really, I'm honored and grateful. And the only thing I'll say to you is this is my hope is, I love when you put your books out in places for people and I just remember I have a memory growing up of the library cards, like traditional library cards.
Yes.
So the end of Worthy, I don't know if you'll see. So you're going to be the first to see it. You're like literally, you have a copy, Nicole, before my family. Let's just put that
I
on
see what you're
record.
saying. I
You
love
see
this.
this library card at the
Mm-hmm.
end. So it's like a traditional library card because I had this vision that, when
I
you get
love
your
that.
book at home, when you're done with your book, write your name in a library card and then pass it on to another woman, another girl, another person who oh my gosh, if they just learned to believe in themselves or see how amazing they were, if they just knew how worthy they are. And I'm just imagining like a full library card when people pass their books on. And so I'm so grateful. I'm honored. And you and me are holding two of the very first copies. I have not even been able to give one yet to anyone in my family this is, brand new, hot off the press. And I'm so honored and excited to share it with you and just every person in your community that's joining us and that's part of this conversation. It's just so important and it matters. And when we learn to believe we are worthy, it just changes every single aspect of our lives. It also changes how we love. It changes the relationships and all of it. So thank you so much for the honor of just sharing this space and this conversation with you.
My gosh, what a powerful sentiment to end on, right? When we begin to believe that we're worthy, it changes really everything, right? Our ability to show up in service of ourselves, ultimately, then our ability to show up in service of our relationships and generally just in service. And something you'll hear me say quite frequently is I do truly believe that inherently part of each of us as individuals is that desire to serve, to be of, value to someone and something that is even bigger, larger, greater than ourselves. And I do think that you gave us the blueprint in your new book, Worthy. Here it is again, one final time for everyone to take a look at the blueprint on how to begin. As always, I will offer the very realistic reminder, the journey, right? This is not an overnight process of just flipping the light switch, as I like to say, though, as we begin to build this foundation, this internal reservoir, if you will, of worthiness, the impact is, in my opinion, far greater than any of us can even imagine. So Thank you again, Jamie. As always, thank you to the beautiful community that tunes into these episodes, that is open and curious and interested, and in my opinion, creating such a great impact that I'm truly honored to be on this journey alongside each and every one of you.